This is Signal and Noise, bringing clarity to data, tech, and AI.
Here, Signal and Noise. We're at day number 3 for Possible event down in Miami, and it's a super fun conference. Lots going on. We are at the suite here on the 30th floor. I've got a special guest, Mike Lacorazza, CMO US. Welcome, Mike.
Thank you. Be here.
Glad to have you. No trouble finding a place?
No, it's all good.
All right, awesome. Well, there's a lot of stuff we wanted to dig in with you. We're really excited you could make it here to chat with us. Because the first thing I think the viewers would love to maybe hear a little bit about your background, how long you've been at US Bank, maybe a little bit what you did before that, kind of experiences you have. If you could share that would be amazing.
Yeah, sure. So if I start with US Bank, I've been in this role for about 2.5 years. And the remit that we have is marketing plus customer experience plus enterprise analytics. Before that, I spent about 15 years in other financial services organizations at Wells Fargo, at TD Ameritrade. I've worked on the agency side at Digitas.
You did? Okay.
I have been in the hospitality business at Marriott, and then I spent the first decade of my career at Lexus and Toyota. So I've had the privilege of working across a lot of different categories and learned new business models along the way.
First, auto, travel, hospitality, and now banking, financial services. Very cool.
Yeah.
Must be an interesting time to be the CMO at a financial services organization with all the trends, like fintech in one hand, this kind of AI disruption, and there's a lot of interesting stuff going on with payments. I'd love if you could maybe just talk a little bit about that.
It's a really fascinating time, right? Because customer expectations for how they're going to be served are evolving very quickly, and we have the privilege of having a tremendous amount of understanding about our customers' financial lives, and in return, they expect us to be able to act on that, to provide the insights, provide the guidance, make those experiences seamless. And look, you have a lot of disruptors coming in from various aspects of the financial spectrum, which makes the competition quite fierce and keeps you on your toes.
I work with a lot of CMOs across industries. I've done a fair amount in financial services. I just think generally the CMO, the perception industry-wide is it's a role that's often underappreciated, sometimes certainly underfunded. And, you look at CMO tenure, it's pretty short. I thought it was really cool to hear that your role is, not only CMO, but also CX and analytics. I think it makes so much sense to have those roll up. Like someone needs to own the experience, right? And I've always found it's just I scratch my head when I see that those things would not be under like purview of one person. Love for you to comment on that.
Yeah, it is a unique structural approach. And I think what's most powerful about it is we've architected a place that has kind of the central nervous system of understanding the voice of the customer, what's happening in the experience, what are the pain points, what are the kind of key needs and desires. And then, there's no one kind of group inside of an organization that like ours that owns a customer experience end to end, because it's multifaceted, and it comes to life in partnership with our product partners, our business line partners to execute the most world-class in the most world-class way as possible.
How does that work? Between obviously digital customer experience, and there's like retail banking is its own thing, right? You've got brick and mortar presence. Like, how does that work?
Yeah. So, think about it this way. So we have a view and a lens into, the product and the different domains, like consumer and small business, all the way up through kind of large corporate institutional, to understand the voice of the clients, how we're performing. And then we also have a channel level view, right? So live channels, digital channels, branch channels. So it comes together in a matrix to understand it in a multifaceted way.
So within that, I imagine there's consumers, there's businesses, and even then, like you've got all these different products and services, whether it's like, car loans, checking accounts,
yes,
all the financial products. It's complex, I'm imagining, right?
Yes, it is. It's a very complex set of domains that we cover and needs that we cover.
Looking at like your role and like some of I think earlier we were talking about synthetic audiences, right? I meant just maybe one AI thing, but like what are some of the like things you're looking at, you're adopting, and how are they impacting your role, like and how you act as a CMO with some of the AI stuff that's coming down the pike right now?
Yeah, well, from our perspective with our team, we have at four broad use cases for how we're deploying AI. So one is personalization, one is process automation, and research and insights in synthetic audiences for sure. And I think that's probably the place where we have made the most progress, the most in a most expeditious fashion. And so, 2 years ago when we set off to build a new brand campaign, we adopted the use of synthetic audiences for the formulation of strategy to evaluate our creative work, and it cut in half the speed to market from what we had historically done. And now that's evolved to the place where the data set behind it is more sophisticated. We can ask broader business-based questions besides, marketing specific types of inquiries. And it's created almost kind of like a demand structure inside the company to have access to the synthetic audiences to answer questions on the
So
fly.
people are asking for it.
Yeah, people are asking for it.
That's really
Yeah,
cool.
it's a kind of own demand.
When I first heard of, like this maybe about a year or two ago, I first heard about the concepts of synthetic audiences, having worked in CX for many years. I used to run a big CX team in consulting, and I was a little skeptical, right? Because it was like, it's so valuable hearing from people what they actually want and translating that into the underlying requirements. I'm not suggesting it's easy, right? And you have to scope the research right. Your sample size has to be statistically significant. And there's always that old, like, okay, if I asked people what Henry Ford thing, if I asked people what they wanted, they would have said faster horses. So like extrapolating that to need, which is sometimes as much of an art as a science, I think. But like, so it sounds like you're having a lot of success with synthetic audiences and it's going well.
Yeah, we are. And, the core of it is not about the large language models. It's not ChatGPT, which if you ask these same sort of questions to ChatGPT or Claude, they're essentially going out to everything they've been able to scrape on the internet, and they're going to give you very generic answers back that they would give to anybody else that's answering that question. So, in order to get the most valuable set of responses, it's about the data that you use underneath it to train it. So, in our case, we have a combination of third-party attitudinal data that's kind of publicly available, things like YouGov and so forth. So we kind of measuring people's attitudes. We have just pattern proprietary from our own research that we might have conducted, both qualitative and quantitative, that we can feed in. And then we have real time information that's being fed in every single day in social media and news. So, for example, we have when one profile, it might be a small business owner named Sarah. If we want to ask Sarah, just for the heck of it, what she thinks about how the NFL draft went down and which teams won and which teams lost, she'll be able to give you an answer because we have that real time feed for what's going on in news, what's going on in culture.
So it sounds like just having is like the models are one thing, fine, you need that, but it's really having access to like the right data to fuel that, right?
That's right.
Okay.
That's right. That's the secret. That's the hardest part of constructing this.
That's a really good point. So looking at your role right now, I mean, I'm imagining you work with a bunch of different agencies and there's a lot of changes in your former agency, right? Like when looking at like how the evolving agency model, there's been a lot of talk about operating systems. Like how does that impacting like how you partner or how you look for partners in the agency space or whether it's creative or media or anything? I mean, is it changed? Like I'd love if you comment on that at all.
You mean from a technology? How's the technology or
from a technology or a process or just the way agencies are structured? I'm just wondering, there's a lot of change right now. Love your thoughts as a marketing leader. Like, are these changes impacting the way that you decided in your partners or work with them? I'd love to hear about that.
Yeah, I would break that down into a few different areas. So the first is that the one thing that I learned, particularly being inside of the agency world, is that it's a people-led business. And at the end of the day, having the very best talent working with you and working on your business is what matters. That's a constant. That's no different. So you have to start there.
I love that, by the way.
You have to start there with
people forget about that sometimes. It really comes down to people and the talent. Yep.
I think brands might tend to try and commoditize the purchase process and the curation of their agency roster. And yes, there's a financial aspect of it that you have to care for, and you have to be smart about how you do that, and how you structure those deals. But at the end of the day, the people really matter. So, as we're deciding who to work with, that's a primary focus for us. And then I think from there, it's, what's the business need that we're trying to solve for, and what are the superpowers of the partners. We are investing in building our own internal, creative capabilities and using AI tools to develop content and so forth. And there's a role that plays. we're not setting out to just replace all of our outside
Sure.
partners. It's how
More of a hybrid model, it
it's a
sounds
hybrid
like.
model.
Yeah.
How do they complement each other? What should we be doing internally? There are advantages to being inside of our own systems. There are advantages to having a more detailed understanding of how our customers and our businesses operate. Maybe the speed to market can be faster for things that you do inside as well.
It's interesting too. I mean, I don't think it's either like in-house or agency, right? I mean, the trend I'm seeing is definitely a hybrid. Certain things make more sense in-house. Certain things agencies are amazing at, and having that information shared. And I love the talent call out too. I mean, I think people tend to. There's so much emphasis on tech and AI now, but it really does come down to the people. A lot of these things.
Mhm.
There was a Fast Company article that you were profiled in recently that I thought was really cool. It talked about, I remember is comparing, one of the points was comparing like brand versus performance. And again, I think that's also, it shouldn't be either or, but like there's some talk about the difference between them, evaluating them. I'd love if you could maybe talk about that for a moment or two.
Yeah. Well, we think about it in this sort of idea of brand position, because at the end of the day, the power of your brand is like gold dust that you sprinkle on everything else. And so having an incredibly strong, powerful brand value proposition, even kind of the classic funnel metrics of awareness and consideration and being in the game really, really matters. And the way you have to do that needs to come to life in a way that complements your performance marketing that lifts it. So, what are the kind of funnel metrics that your brand is driving, and perceptions and trust that you're engendering, and then how is it performing in terms of the economic impact that it's creating, both directly from the investments that you make there, but also how it lifts your product marketing to greater heights as they work together.
I like that because there's always been this perception that I think is unfair. All brand marketing and performance marketers say this all the time. Well, brand marketing, you can't really measure it. It's all fluffy. It's just top of funnel, which I think is totally wrong, right?
I think that's totally wrong. Yeah.
Yeah, and it should. You're right. There is like the funnel starts with brand, and it goes
Yeah.
down. So you should be able to like measure and understand and quantify.
Yeah. I mean, many of the channel selections that you have might not be as deterministic down to the cookie level detail or the customer level detail, but with the right sort of structure and data structure architecture, you can model it pretty successfully to understand what it's driving.
It makes sense. Is there anything that you're either working on or that you want to work on that you've heard recently that really, as marketing leader, gets you super excited?
Yes, we are, as a company, putting an enormous focus on showing up for our clients in the most interconnected way, as an interconnected bank, meaning we have this enormous responsibility to be able to provide the guidance and the products and services across a very broad spectrum of needs, whether it's, on the consumer side, lending or credit cards, or, deposits and so forth, savings. In the corporate institutional space, it could be everything from Forex trading,
Sure.
right,
Yeah.
for global companies to loans, to payment management, treasury management. And so, what can happen in a really large company is the way that you serve your clients could become siloed. And so we have a really conscious effort on showing up in a way that's team oriented, that's client focused. And what is happening is inside the company is there's this enormous energy towards customer centricity and making decisions with the customer at the center of what we're doing. So as a CMO, we live in the world of customer centricity.
Yep.
So
I mean, that's late.
it's like, it's music to my ears. And so to have the entire company migrating towards a more customer centric approach you couldn't ask for a more exciting brief.
I love that. I mean, I've done a lot of work with Amazon over the years. I mean, their whole thing is like they're the most customer obsessed company. Everything is, like fundamentally boils down to like, would this be good for the customer? Yes or no. So I love that. As a marketing leader, I bet that's music to your ears, right?
Filter. It's a great filter.
Nice. Remember you mentioned like earlier that you'd gone to an AI conference recently, and there was some really interesting stuff. I'd love if you could maybe share a couple of tidbits or insights from that.
Yeah, it's interesting. I had the privilege of attending this global AI conference and seeing the presentations from researchers around the world studying different aspects of AI. Some of the themes that I noticed, first was there is there's a massive amount of research and focus on what you might call kind of tokenization compression. I don't know if that's the right language, but how do you get high quality outputs that use less compute? there's this kind of adage going around that
Interesting.
I
Yeah.
used to spend 10 hours coding and 1 hour of debugging. Now I spend 1 hour of coding and 10 hours of debugging. And so it starts to add up to a lot of it can be very expensive. And then you might not have the quality output. So researchers approaching it from different ways of constructing their models and their methodologies to execute the queries and the outcomes that they want with less compute power.
Yeah, pretty expensive. That's for sure. That, token costs. And funny, I was reading this. I thought this was hilarious. They're like, apparently some companies, they're basically telling their engineers, we want you to use tokens. Because that's showing you're using AI. Our hypothesis AI will make you more efficient, and they're actually being bonused on now on token use. So, so incentives drive outcomes, right? So apparently people are like creating agents that are like writing documents, deleting documents. I mean, I just thought that was insane. But
that sounds a little perverse to me. I mean,
know.
I applaud the idea of incentivizing people to immerse themselves in the technology, but if it's based on how much you spend on compute, that's probably not the healthiest.
With no guardrails, right?
Yeah.
I would think it was.
Probably not.
But no, but your point is a good one. Like these costs can get pretty high. I think token prices are falling over time. And I guess my opinion is eventually it all kind of gets commoditized and the value will really be on it, the applications built on top of it, right? But it's definitely not the first I've heard that concern. So, well, really appreciate you coming by. Sounds like you got a fun job, like leading marketing at such an iconic brand and such a great institution. So, thanks. Appreciate again you coming and best of luck at the rest of the conference and whatever you're up to next.
Yeah. Thanks for the time today. Really enjoyed the conversation.
Thank you.
You bet.